Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning back into the Small Town Johnstown podcast. Again, I am Nick with my beautiful co host Jenny. And today we're going to talk about cities and towns, the differences, especially with what we can compare our best. And me being from not me being from Orlando, but me being from Philly, living in Orlando, living in Austin, Texas, living in somewhat city, actually not somewhat, big city areas, compared to living in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, maybe even a little bit of my experience living in Ocala, Florida, which is a small town in Florida, about an hour and a half outside of Orlando. And then we're going to get Jenny's perspective also on being in a city or town, but she might have more of the town expertise and opinions compared to the city because she's never really lived in a city. She's mainly lived in towns. I'd say the biggest city you probably lived in was Tennessee, Knoxville.
Yeah, Knoxville's probably the biggest, and I was not there that long.
Yeah, you were there for about like a month.
And Kutztown is a small farmland town, college town. There's more people enrolled in the school than there are living in the town. So I haven't necessarily experienced big city life living in it, I guess.
All right, so let's. Do you want to get ahead and define the difference between a city and a town?
Yes, so it's funny because Johnstown is considered the city of Johnstown. But Wikipedia says, generally, in everyday speech, a town is larger or more populated than a village and smaller than a city. And various cities and towns together may form a metropolitan area, and a city can also be culturally, economically, or politically prominent community with respect to surrounding towns. Population of Johnstown has varied so much over the years, and considering that it's dropping to as low as it is, I would say it's more of a town than it was when it was named, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, don't you remember I remember in one of our early episodes you talked about how an article said Johnstown is one of the least likely cities to expand.
Yeah, definitely. There are more people moving out of Johnstown than there are moving in.
I want to get into some of my notable differences when I first moved to Johnstown from something I'm not used to, and one of them was the travel distance to do anything and people's mentality to that travel distance. So I remember being at one of my jobs, and one of my coworkers told me that, hey, let's just go to Altoona for like a trip or something with like the people that work there. And I was like, okay, cool. How far is it? And she said, oh, it's only like 40 minutes or an hour. And in my head, I'm like, only 40 minutes to an hour? That's like in the city. That's a trip. Like you're taking a day off of work to drive up an hour to go someplace, because then it's an hour also back, not including however long you spend there. I mean, that's like a whole day. An hour is a lot. Where I'm from, it was like, oh, it's an hour walk or a 30-minute walk, not an hour drive. An hour drive was insane. And that's when I knew I wasn't in any type of city at all, when a 40, 30, or an hour long drive was not that big of a deal. It's like, oh, just going down the street. I'm just like, oh, man, people must be making money around this area to be paying them gas prices right now. If an hour drive is not that bad. But then again, I will say maybe it's just her, but I've heard other people kind of talk about it in the same way. But I've also heard people talk about how far it is, like, oh, Altoona is far. But then again, we also had a coworker that drives about an hour to work, multiple coworkers that drive about an hour to work just to work at a $10 an hour job.
Yeah. The math's not adding up. And I feel like for the majority of people that live in Johnstown, if there's not something here, where are you going to go?
Yeah.
You're going to go Altoona?
Blairsville, Indiana.
There's nothing in Blairsville, really. Oh. You're going to go to Greensburg?
Greensburg.
Or, if necessary, the whole way to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Pittsburgh's like 2.5 hours from here, hour and a half?
It's like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, and like, I mean, we've taken trips. I'm starting to get that small town mentality where I'm like, oh, let's just go to Pittsburgh and come back, and it's nothing. I still worked afterwards, and you have to get up a little early. Yeah, it's fine. Let's do it. I'm starting to get that small town mentality where an hour and a half drive is not that big of a deal. I remember growing up living in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and my mom living in Lancaster, and we'd literally have to like set out a weekend to drive up from the suburbs to Lancaster, and that was only like an hour and a half, hour 40-minute drive, but back then it felt like a lot. Like, oof, man, we got 3 hours of our day right there, and
Yeah, when you're driving an hour there, hour back, and hanging out there for the majority of your day, you don't have time to do anything else.
yeah, I mean, it's different now because you have cell phones, you can play your own music, you're not stuck listening to the radio and
Yeah.
staring out the window or whatever. I don't know. Maybe it was just my ADHD that made it seem a lot longer than what it was. Also, it was with my dad, so he's not really a talker, and my mom doesn't play music in the car, so
Oh no.
yeah, so them drives. But then again,
Awkward silence.
awkward silence. I would just talk. But then again, when I lived in Ocala, again, same mentality. People like, oh, let's go to the beach in Orlando. I'm like, oh, how long? Oh, it's just 2 hours, just an hour-ish, hour and a half. I'm like, oh, that's it? I mean, like, they came back home and still did stuff afterwards. I came back home and I passed out.
Well, that's the thing with my friends that I went to school with them being from Eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. The beach was a day trip. For me, that's a whole vacation. That's a whole week. We're going to spend time at the beach.
Yeah, but I mean, if I lived in New Jersey too, it'll be a day trip. I'm just talking about the distance though, because they're like 10 minutes.
That's what I'm saying. Like, people don't realize how many opportunities other cities and states have because they're so closer to different things. Like the beach, like Florida, Disney World, that kind of thing. You're right next to Disney World.
Especially in Orlando, you were
A lot
a
of people
30-minute
here would
drive
be-
to Disney World.
Yeah, a lot of people would be super hype about living that close to Disney World and be going all the time.
Well, there's a lot of people in general, the Disney adults, that enjoy want to be super close to Disney World. We are like 5 minutes from great hiking trails and everything. And if you lived in the city, you would have to drive an hour and ish out to go to those hiking trails or fishing spots or maybe try and find little creeks.
Yeah, I have a funny story about that. When I went down to the beach with my aunt, we had met people that were living there in North Carolina, and they made a joke like, "Oh, you guys are so lucky to get to see the mountains and everything. Like, we should do like a house swap or something like that." And we were just like, "Okay, we'll stay at the beach," because we're not used to that. But for them, they are so jealous of all the pretty mountains and scenery. I can't talk. The pastures, the greenery that we have up here. So
I mean, don't get me wrong. When I first moved here, I thought it was beautiful because of the mountains and stuff. And in the suburbs of Philadelphia, you have some hills, but you don't really have mountains. I mean, yeah. So it's not something I was accustomed to. And I was like, oh wow, so much wildlife, so much green. You know, the air quality might be a little bit better. Let alone it comes with side effects of a lot of pollen. But one that is a pro if you want to live in a town. A lot of hiking, a lot of wildlife. You just don't get to do anything in the winter unless you like hiking and doing that stuff in the cold. And it gets really cold up here compared to the city.
yeah.
But in the city, everything from shops and stuff to do, museums and stuff, is all really just a walkable distance. I mean, even when me and my friends drove down from the suburbs of Philadelphia to like center city and stuff, it was like a 30-minute, 20-minute drive. You park somewhere, and like, don't get me wrong, the city's huge. But there's trains, there's buses. You can walk to a lot of places. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, it might take you an 30-ish, 40 minutes to walk. But I mean, if you're spending the day down there anyway, I mean, it's a nice walk.
At least you're getting some exercise.
Yeah, you're getting
and not
some exercise.
blowing an hour's worth of gas.
True, and you're also smelling some good food and
Yeah.
the Asian food in Chinatown, Philadelphia. So
In Johnstown, at least downtown, there was an Ideal and a Rite Aid that closed recently. So I think for the people that do rely on public transportation or walking majority of places, that makes it significantly harder on the people that live downtown because now there's not a walkable grocery store down here.
Take the bus or get an Uber.
Or get your groceries at Dollar General.
Get your groceries at Dollar General. We can get into that too. In the city, there's just a lot more stuff to do, especially that doesn't involve drinking or outdoorsy stuff. Like,
Yeah.
again, comparable to me being in Philadelphia, even being in Pittsburgh, there's museums. In Orlando, there's museums. There was Disney World. In Austin, Texas, there was South by Southwest. There were video game conventions. You got museums and stuff like that. Fancy places to eat. Parks, everything. In towns, it's just kind of parks, it's churches, it's bars, it's out certain stuff you can only do in certain seasons. And if you want to do other stuff, it's a drive, and there's
Yeah.
not much to do for young people other than drink. That's why there's a lot of people that drink around here.
There's a
There's a
lot of
lot of
bars.
bars down here.
Yeah.
Because there isn't like some cool hanging spot. You just walk around. I mean, you can walk around downtown Johnstown, and there's just not much to see. It's small. It's just a lot of cool looking stores. You walk in, check it out, you leave. It's not like that many tattoo places. There's like a one or two bookstores. There's a library. There's some food spots, but it's all kind of the same food: pizza, hoagies, and hot dogs. And there's not much differences, not much diversity in food wise. There's museum, like everybody, like you can say the same thing about Philly or Pittsburgh. Oh, you go to a museum, that's it. But there's still just like just walk around. There's still just different. It's so big, it's bigger. So there's just different little stores and stuff that you can check out. Different clothing things, different clothing stores and stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot harder here to walk around and have a shopping day because there are no outlets, and even at our Galleria Mall, there's only so many places that you can go shopping for clothes or knickknacks or whatever it is that you need. If you're going to a big mall that has a lot of stores, your shopping day is in that place, and you can walk to shop throughout the day. If you want to go shopping here, you have to drive to Ross, and then you got to go to Boscov's in the mall, and just back and forth and drive all around. It's not all located in one convenient area.
I mean, Florida, there's a lot of outlets everywhere because it's nice all the time. Same thing for Texas. Outlets are bigger in those areas because it's always so nice. It doesn't matter, and there's always a different variety of stores in these outlets, and in Austin, Texas, and Orlando, in Philadelphia, there was a multitude of malls you can go to. You got the Franklin Mills, aka Philadelphia Mills Mall. You got Willow Grove. You have Cherry Hill. You have Neshaminy, even though Neshaminy is kind of dying. You have just options to go to. Also, you have the professional. Like, let's just say you don't want to go to museums, or you can still go to the Phillies games or the Sixers games, or Orlando Magic. Austin, Texas doesn't really have baseball, but they have college football there.
Well, we have baseball and hockey here downtown that's accessible. I think the biggest issue with that is kind of the parking situation. It's really hard to find a parking spot sometimes.
Yeah, but that's also a difference. Those are major league teams and college affiliated
Yeah.
teams. These are just like local, cheaper, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But still not the same experience,
Yeah.
It's not a sellout crowd. It's not playing music. I mean, I do want to check out a Mill Rats game sometime, and maybe we can go to a Tomahawks game, but the atmosphere is a little different. Especially the minor league teams, they do a lot more entertainment throughout the innings that maybe the major league teams don't do. Like, I remember we went to an Altoona Curve game, and they're just spraying water everywhere, and they had the kids come over and splash, and they did a bunch of other like games in between with the mascot. While the Phillies and the Pirates did that, but it wasn't as entertaining as between innings and stuff. You just kind of sat there and watched it and got into the hype and really just enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's also more stressful too, being surrounded by thousands and thousands of people versus, just a couple people coming downtown for a Mill Rats game.
I mean, I guess it'd be stressful. I don't really feel
Being in
stressed.
large crowds of people is very stressful, especially when you're packed in there like sardines.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the only stressful part about it is just the sitting situation, going in between throughout the aisles and stuff like that. Other than that, I don't really mind it too much because I'm too focused on what's going on in the game. All right, so we can get into also the pay gap between towns and cities. Living in Johnstown, living in Ocala, you could not really find jobs that pay more than what the inflated minimum wage is, because technically in Pennsylvania the minimum wage is still $7.50, but
$7.25.
$7.25, but a lot of places are paying $10 to $11. Chipotle is gonna universally pay $15 because that's just who they are as a company. So compared to when you do live in a city, maybe you will like the cheapest paying job is a 15 to 17. Maybe one of the more medium jobs are paying 29. I could be mistaken because I haven't lived in a city. I don't know if these jobs are paying yet, but I'm assuming that they are paying a little bit more because it is also a little bit more expensive to live in a city compared to living in a town like Johnstown, where we have a decently big one floor apartment. We're only paying $850 a month plus utilities. No, electric and water. No, electric.
Electric and gas.
Electric and gas.
How do you not know what bills we pay, Nicholas? I do think that the base minimum wage kind of unofficially in Johnstown is around $9 or $10 an hour. However, I did apply to a Planet Fitness in Knoxville and they were paying $850.
$850.
Yeah. So it could be worse, believe it or
I
not.
guess maybe I am mistaken with that statement then, and these companies are all this cheap.
I just think
But then again. Well, no, yeah, I guess that was recently. Yeah, it's about a year ago you applied, probably.
like 2 by now, but
Was the economy different then?
yeah, but still the rates for the Planet Fitness here haven't changed.
Yeah.
So maybe they went up. But I know for Pittsburgh, for the same job I have now, I'd probably get paid like $1 or 2 more. But the rent is like double.
Financially
Yeah.
high.
There's pros and cons.
There is pros and cons. It is expensive to live in the city. You probably won't be able to do it on any type of minimum wage job or non-career, depending what you define as a career-oriented job. Definitely be a lot harder to have a family.
Yeah.
But then again, there's people in Pittsburgh that do it now that are working on what you call a non or career job or non-career job, depending where you stand. So it's interesting. But I feel like people get paid a little bit more in this city because I remember Produce Junction even boosted their rates up. When I was working there, it was like I think $9 was like a good raise. Now it's like, I think my friend told me they're getting paid 13, 14 for a local produce area. So, but again, I don't do much research. She's the one that does more of the research. So I'm mostly just talk out my butt. Actually, no, talking about butts, there's just a lot more sheets around this area, and sheets is booty cheeks. Wawa gang all day. If you know, you know. Like J-Lo.
Vote in the comments. Sheets or Wawa. Me personally, Wawa for beverages, Sheets for food.
Sheets got the best hoagies.
Sheets. You just said Sheets got the best hoagies. That's on the record.
Wawa's got the best hoagies. Wawa's got the best pretzels. Wawa's got the best drinks. Also, let me know, pretzel-wise, do you guys like pretzels with mustard or without mustard? I'm a mustard on pretzel type of guy.
I like sweet pretzels.
I also like fruit pretzels, but I prefer normal pretzels with salt and not baked in butter like Annie Ann's, and some mustard drizzled on top.
You mean cheese? Like cheese sauce?
No, well, cheese sauce is also good, but
Cheese sauce is better. Mustard.
mustard's the best. Moving on, what about produce? Do you think... now, I've noticed that produce, maybe in Johnstown, could be like this in your area too with other small towns that aren't near shipping docks, might be a little bit more expensive because of the travel that the produce has to go through to get to these stores. Now, being near shipping docks, being in Philadelphia obviously is a big import in shipping. The price for food and produce is just a little bit cheaper than it is up here because of the travel costs, that I think. What about your town, if you live in a small town? How many markets do you have in your small town? If you live in a city, let me know what your local markets are, your local produce stores, your local anything is. I'm very intrigued to find out. Now, how about schools and education? Do you think we're educated enough to talk about that topic from cities and towns? I know I'm educated enough to talk about the size difference, just comparing from my high school days, even living in Lancaster, Lancaster City compared to, I lived in a lot of places. Lancaster City compared to Johnstown. I mean, there's 5 school districts around here?
There's a decent bit. I'm trying to think. Johnstown itself, there's Greater Johnstown, which is by far the largest school. There's Ferndale, my alma mater. There's Richland. There's Westmont. Township is technically not Johnstown. That's technically Somerset County. Conemaugh Valley. Are we missing any? Forest Hills is technically Sidman, South Fork area. But I guess you could consider that. I think that's all of them.
So there's a lot of different schools, and the classes are really small. I mean, what was your graduating high school class?
Somewhere around 50 or 60.
50 to 60 people. I'm pretty sure if I Now, I did not graduate from my local high school. I moved to Texas.
You went there.
I went
Did you
there.
finish?
I moved to Texas at the time and got my GED because I would have been held back a year.
Oh, no.
Shh. But I remember my other friends talking about it, and the graduation class was up to, I think, 1,000-ish kids, maybe. So
That's more than our entire high school and elementary school combined.
yeah.
And we didn't have a middle school. The middle school and the high school were like smashed together.
Okay, I lied. Not 1,000. 556 people graduated.
Still a lot more than Ferndale for sure.
Still a lot more than 50, 60.
Johnstown is definitely still smaller than Salem though.
Yeah, but we had a decent amount of like districts come to ours, so I could be mistaken.
Well, Johnstown is a very large area, but then when you have Ferndale, all those like split up districts that kind of go to a separate smaller school, those definitely take numbers away from Greater Johnstown.
Yeah, especially because like it's still not probably as populated as we are, so it's just gonna like if you have so many school districts in the city with little branches off of cities or towns, then obviously it's not gonna be that many people.
Yeah.
Another thing to really quickly talk about is there's definitely just a lack of diversity in a city versus a town. A city is really definitely more people from different cultures and different backgrounds and stuff, and from different countries. While in Johnstown, you kind of just have your 2 or 3 main, and then just some different people, cultured people around here and there, and different variety of food. Now, we can get into jobs. Johnstown is mostly known for hiring what type of work?
So since Johnstown is kind of in the middle of the health belt, the majority of the jobs here are through Conemaugh, nursing, doctors, that kinds of thing. Because Johnstown is decreasing in size, that lessens the job opportunities available to the people that are here.
Just some more other stuff. I mean, things that people like to do. People in cities like to walk around a little bit more. I know I did when I lived in the city. I like to walk around, get some air. Even if it was a little cold, just bundle up a little bit. But here, people like to go hunting. I mean, people like to go fishing. People like to do more outdoorsy stuff. I didn't even know when the hunting day was. I never hunted in my life. I never shot a gun in my life.
But around here,
You're born with a rifle.
I mean, yeah, basically. And we always had off in school once hunting season would start. And
Yeah, nobody's off in school in hunting season.
yeah, and if we didn't have off, I mean, there were teachers that would take off, like, right when it started.
We have school tomorrow? Nah, I'm going hunt.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to fish, and that's about the closest that I come to hunting, because I'm hunting fish. But other than that, hunting's boring for me personally. You're in a tree with a gun, doing the wah, 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 maybe some duck sounds like the Duck Dynasty people, or staring at a deer waiting for it to take a step. I don't have the patience enough for hunting.
Well, isn't fishing the same thing? It requires the same amount of
Yeah,
patience.
but fishing, you can throw your rod in, stack your rod up somewhere, chill on your phone, listen to some music, bask in the sun, enjoying. Then your rod starts going. It's like, yeah,
Maybe hunting is just for
reel it
people
in.
who can't swim.
maybe. Finally, just to end it on some fun little topics, how about thrift store shopping? We definitely found there's some decent things you can find in Philadelphia, maybe some unique things. There's more people there to bring stuff to Goodwill, while here it's kind of just old people clothes and a couple suits in here, and then
There's
some
definitely-
weird looking mugs and glasses.
There's definitely not as much variety, not as many options. Some of the stuff that is in the Goodwills is good and great, and some of it looks like it's been in that Goodwill for the past 50 years.
Your cousin said he found Jordans. I ain't find no Jordans in these Goodwills.
Not yet.
Not
Maybe.
yet. So let us know what your Goodwills are like. Let us know your thrift stops. Let us know some of your greatest thrift shop finds. Please let us know what your town is like, or what you would think if you want to live into the city, what a city life would be like, what your ideal city life would be like. If you live in a city, you want to live in a town, what your ideal town life would be like. Do you just want to be in a peace and quiet? Do you just want to be by yourself? I do remember talking to some people where they went from Philadelphia, went from a city to a small town like this, and it's like, I just like the peace and quiet, and it's relaxing, and I can just be to myself. So.
Yeah.
It really depends on the person.
Yeah. What do you think it would take for Johnstown to become a city again? What would you bring here? What does it need?
Yeah,
let us know.
What are some of your ideas? Let us know. Thank you for tuning in again. This is Small Towns Johnstown. Please like, subscribe, hit the follow button, put down some comments. Let us tell your friends about us if you really enjoyed the podcast. Thank you for tuning in again. Hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Again, I'm Nick. This is Jenny, and this is Small Town Johnstown, Pennsylvania.